I'm sorry, lad.
Baby, I quit.
Sales and profits down. Phooey.
My own business. All you need's a little cap.
A decent hat in the entire village. And such prices. Imagine paying that much for a poke bonnet. Why, it was an awful thing.
Why not? Women's hats. My own business.
Fortunately, Jonathan was... Well, the cost of the building took care of the nest egg. And there was nothing left to pay for the necessary tools and equipment. But happily, Jonathan had a good reputation. And as his idea promised a profit, his friends and neighbors were willing to invest some of their savings in his new business. In the nick of time, an enterprising chap showed up with the raw materials to make hats. And before long, Jonathan was open for business. First, he had to advertise.
Shop at Bonton, it's the spot. 12 new hat styles, that's a lot. Ladies, get that new hat thrill. 30 days to pay your bill.
Superior style and quality of his product. He set a price for his creations that the consumer was willing to pay, and sales poured in from satisfied customers. Jonathan had big dreams of the wonderful reward in business for himself. But before he could buy what he wanted, his employees' wages had paid. He had to pay taxes. And his friends who helped finance the business had to be paid a return on their investment. When all of his bills were paid, Jonathan had to exchange his big dream for a little dream.
Mesdames, mademoiselles, it is the privilege of Alphonse, hat stylist to all the crowned heads of Europe, to bring you hats with style so chic, a quality magnifique, and a price, ooh la la, so low. Come one, come all, grand opening.
To meet competition, Jonathan had to play. If customers approved the quality, style, and price of Jonathan's new designs, he still could make his dreams come true. With the passing years, this strong foundation of freedoms protected the dignity of the individual and his family, gave everyone the right to worship as he promised anyone with ability and enterprise the opportunity to participate in the building of the American way of life as we know it today. A way of life that depends upon millions of thrifty Americans who send a portion of their savings to work in our business system each year. People from all walks of life, workers, farmers, housewives, all of us, dollars to work in our business system in the hope of earning dividends or interest on our investment. Anyone who has an insurance policy, a bank deposit, or a share of stock is helping to finance, buy the land, the buildings, the tools and equipment, and create new job opportunities for our expanding population. The goods we produce are distributed to main streets all over the country. Today doesn't look much like the main street of Jonathan's time. The principles of our business system remain the same. Still compete with one another for the consumer's supply of spendable dollars. And Mrs. Consumer is still mighty critical of everything she buys. Uh-oh, competition. The management of every business has a continuing problem to improve their product to stay ahead of competition, or else.
This is it. Quick Chill's got the ball. We've got to get it back. Give them that new product play. More style, better quality, new features, and at the right price. Hit the line, men. Let's go.
Micrometer, wrench, file.
In addition to creating a better product, management develops new tools and more efficient methods. Workers turn out more boxes to sell at a price Mrs. Consumer will pay. The new features about this better product are advertised to point out its competitive advantages.
The Auto Magic Permafreeze, with plenty of room for groceries galore. The Auto Magic Permafreeze, with a super duper store-o-matic door. Just press the button for your ice, a feature that is new, and extra space all over the place for other items too. In the Auto Magic Permafreeze, so see your dealer right away. Get a Permafreeze today.
Ah, yeah, lady. Permafreeze is your kind of refrigerator. High quality at a low price.
Sales dollars from satisfied customers once again flow back to Permafreeze. A successful business must have enough sales dollars coming in to enable management to pay the expenses of doing salaries and wages, materials and supplies, research and product development, plant maintenance and repair. In addition to all of these bills, management has to pay taxes to local, state, and federal governments. Any money the profit. Wise management plows part of it back into the business. The remainder of the profit paid out as dividends. These dividends are back to investors as a reward for risky, although occasionally some of us pick a lemon and have to take a loss. The constant investment of our savings through good times and bad has enabled our competitive business system to continue to increase the production of more and better goods to meet the demand for a better standard of living. For example, the inefficient tools to help him turn out a product. Low production meant low wages. In 1900, many men had to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Enough money to provide their families with the bare essentials. Hand labor was the rule in the home as well as the factory. In many families, the youngsters had to work to add their earnings to the family budget and forego the opportunity to get an education. And with most families in those days, the standard of living left to be desired. A half-century rested enough in our business system to provide the average worker with efficient and expensive buildings and machinery to enable him to produce enough in a 40-hour week as the 1900 worker earned in a 60-hour week. This shorter work week gives us all more leisure time to enjoy a standard of living beyond the wildest anyone who lived a half-century ago. The more we earn, the more our families have to spend for the things they need and want. Young people today have leisure time for fun and enjoy educational opportunities denied their fathers and grandfathers. And fortunately, we have been able to raise our standard of living without sacrificing the spiritual side of life, which means so much to the American family. Continue to provide a better life for our increasing population, in spite of destructive forces which have pounded against our foundation of freedoms with no avail. However, wars, or the threat of wars, interrupt the normal operations of our competitive system and may result in government controls which crack essential blocks in our foundation of freedoms. In World War II, wages were controlled. Many workers were frozen to their jobs. Farm prices were controlled, and profits of business were limited. Raw materials were allocated between essential and non-essential business. On Main Street, USA, many of us found less to buy because a good portion of our productive capacity went to the war effort.
Prices were fixed, and the available supply of goods was rationed. In war emergencies, we allow government to respond, but we Americans have learned to remove government controls as quickly as possible and to repair the blocks in the foundation of our freedoms to allow our business system to resume its normal operations. While we invest part of our savings to help finance the world's most efficient business system, at the same time we pay taxes to government to finance many kinds of services which also contribute to our way of life. For example, our taxes must provide necessary funds to improve and expand our school system. Our taxes must be sufficient to pay for city streets, health, fire, and police protection, and of course, aid to the needy. Our state taxes help pay for highways, educational institutions, and among other things, help to finance important experiments to increase the productivity of our farms. Our federal taxes pay for irrigation and reclamation projects, for national parks, postal services, the Weather Bureau, and many other services. Our taxes have to pay for the enormous cost of past wars and provide the funds for a defense program which will ensure the safety of our country. In addition, all of us should be willing to pay whatever taxes are necessary to enable efficient government to improve or expand any essential service. But with our present tax load, we should avoid pressuring government for any new services that aren't absolutely necessary. Because we all know the more our government provides, the more taxes it's forced to collect. None of us can escape. Big business. All business. Farmers. Workers. Housewives, and all of us have to pay our share. Demanding more and more from government could create a tax burden heavy enough to crack essential blocks in the foundation of our business system. Therefore, we shouldn't let our taxes reach a point where they destroy our ability to save and invest. For, as we have seen, our rising standard of living depends upon a constant flow of savings dollars into our business system each year. In the future of our country, waves of destructive forces will continue to batter against our foundation. When any force weakens the interlocked blocks of our political and economic freedoms, as good citizens, we must be quick to use and repair any cracks that may keep the foundation of our business system strong. We shall be able to maintain and improve the way of life our forefathers conceived and established. A way of life which gave everyone who came to this country the chance to progress according to his rise. Like the youth of yesterday, the young people of today deserve the same opportunity to earn success and accomplishment. And on this
think of prospecting, you think of gold and the men who had the faith and courage to find it wherever it was. The history of prospecting is a story of man's search for riches, gold, silver, diamonds. But prospecting today means more than diamonds, more than the perilous search for silver and gold. Prospecting is a technique that we use daily from childhood to old age, in managing a home, or in getting along in our business. In fact, we are all prospectors, whether we realize it or not, whether we have a conscious system of prospecting or not. In salesmanship, there is one main difference. A good salesman knows he is a prospector, and he's developed a system of prospecting which produces the results that have made him a good salesman. Without a definite system of continuously adding to and maintaining his prospect list, a salesman can't be successful. Instead of having a definite schedule of real interviews or contact calls, he wanders aimlessly and wonders whom he could call on. Instead of a planned approach to a previously arranged call, he just drops in and is usually dropped out. Instead of the confident enthusiasm of knowing a prospect's needs and having a real proposition to fit those needs, he's in a crumb-picking mood. In fact, without the orderly management of efficient prospecting, a salesman is just another guy with no real ideas in his head but the desire to earn his commission. Well then, what is a good system of prospecting? How do you find out who wants your product or service? Or who could be changed from a needer into a wanter among a mass of people who all look the same? Let's take a closer look at just one of this mass. Here he is, Mr. George Kimball. He has a good position, a family, and a home in the suburbs. You'd be surprised to know that his name is in the prospect file of 3 different salesmen right now. Judging from their prospect lists, these salesmen know what they are doing. Of course, they don't know about each other, so let's play dumb and find out from each why he thinks George Kimball is a good prospect for his product and how he got George's name in the first place. Here's Bill Bates, oil burner salesman, and a mighty good one, too. Bill, tell us how you got George Kimball on your prospect list.
Well, you know, that's a funny thing just happened yesterday. I had to catch an early train to the city for my weekly check-in at the home office. That always means rushing things a little. No second cup of coffee at breakfast and a brisk walk to the station. Yesterday, I just made the train nicely, but there was one man who didn't. I knew just how he felt. Poor guy, he really looked sore. Suddenly, I heard somebody in the seat behind me say, "Nuts. Old George missed it again. There goes our card game." Sure enough, there's 3 card players waiting for their 4th, and they are really disgusted. Well, that's where another guy might drop it and just bury his head in his paper, or concentrate on that cute blonde across the aisle, or just bury his face in his paper, but not me. I'm the curious type, and I've found that's one of my best systems of digging up prospects, just keeping my eyes and ears open. So I kept listening to these frustrated card players. Seems George missed the train frequently, and the reason was always the same: furnace trouble. Down in the basement shoveling coal when he should be on his way to the train. Well, I managed to control my enthusiasm and sort of casually offered myself as a 4th, which was right up their alley. While we played, I got the conversation back to their missing pal. Said I'd noticed him with them before and thought he might live in my neighborhood. The rest was a cinch. Before we reached the city, I knew his name was George Kimball, that he likes golf, has a wife and 2 kids, nice home up on Birch Road, and a good position with the Arnold Company in the city. That was all I needed to get him on my list as an important prospect.
Thanks, Bill. Right now, we've got Mr. Kimball on another list. More oil burners? No, automobiles this time.
Sorry, Mr. Wells is not in.
Oh, you say Mr. Wells is not in, miss. Then, could you tell us how he got George Kimball's name in his prospect file?
Oh, gladly. Mr. Wells is a wonderful salesman, you know. Tall, dark, handsome, so masterful.
About Mr. Kimball, miss.
Oh, I've never seen Mr. Kimball. Mr. Wells has so many prospects. Of course, there was a time when he first started selling that he didn't have so many. He kept hoping for prospects so hard, always wondering where he could make a sale. But opportunity always passed him by. But now things are different. He's developed several good ways of getting prospects. The best one, I think, is the way he got George Kimball's name. You see, when most salesmen have sold a car to a customer, they just forget him for 2 or 3 years. But Mr. Wells always makes a point of delivering new cars to his customers in person. Then he visits them again in 2 or 3 weeks to make sure that they're happy with the car, and also to find out who else in the neighborhood likes the new car. He was doing that last Thursday, and the new owner told him a fellow golfer, George Kimball, had really admired the car and had talked about getting one himself. Well, here are the facts Mr. Wells has on George Kimball. Owns a 5-year-old car of a different make, lives on Birch Road, has a wife and 2 young children, works with the Arnold Company in the city.
I see. What now, miss?
He'll sell Mr. Kimball, I'll bet. In any case, whether he sells him or not, he'll get a new prospect from him.
Well, thank you, miss, and we wish Mr. Wells the best of luck. Here we go again. George Kimball. Let's see. Oil burners, automobiles, and what's this? Insurance. Looks like there'll be some red-hot competition for George's dollar. John Ingram, insurance representative. How did you get George Kimball's name on your prospect list, John?
Well, a friend of mine gave his name to me. That sounds simple, doesn't it? But let's go back a bit and I'll show you. You know, an insurance salesman has a tough job getting prospects if he doesn't have a regular system. Of course, there are tip-offs like the arrival of babies and wedding announcements, but if you wait for those, you'll find yourself behind the fellow who got in before the announcements. My most effective sources of prospects are people in a position to know who might need insurance. One of the men I serve with on our church finance committee is a business consultant. I've helped him out considerably with group policy plans, and in return, he tips me off on good prospects. Prospects that he knows in the organizations he contacts. The Arnold Company is a client of his, and he told me that one of their executives, George Kimball, was being promoted soon with a healthy raise in salary. I understand he's fairly young with a wife and 2 kids, and probably could increase his insurance program. I have an appointment with him today, using my friend's name to get started right.
Thank you, John, and good luck. There you have it, fellows. The same prospect's name in the files of 3 different salesmen, each one using a different method of locating and qualifying George Kimball as a prospect. Bill Bates kept his eyes and ears open, used personal observation to get Kimball's name on his list. Harold Wells tried to turn a sale he had made into a chance for another sale, used the endless chain system. John Ingram developed people who could refer him to prospects, used a center of influence system. 3 different methods, all effective in producing prospects. These are no magic formulas. You might use any of them or any combination of them. Most successful salesmen, such as the men we've seen, use all of these systems in some combination or other. And some might add other systems, such as spotters or bird dogs, cold canvassing or direct mail and telephone. Whatever system you use is a good one for you if it produces prospects week after week and leaves you time for effective selling efforts. Results like this depend on regular, systematic prospecting, the rock-bottom foundation of your selling success.
The people intent, because their economy was growing naturally. There was and the money went far enough so that the average person could live comfortably. The war forced higher taxes in order to buy the equipment they needed to fight successfully. The government soon found out, however, that even these higher taxes were not enough to pay for the equipment it needed. And so,
After borrowing what it could from the people's savings, the government of paradise had to borrow more and more money from the banks in order to... Finally, the war was over. Following the war, there was a shortage of consumer goods due to the fact that the nation had not been producing them during the war. Naturally, the prices of these things increased because of the higher demand and continuing shortages. Then the young men of paradise came home and found themselves jobs again, and found themselves wives, and settled down in homes, lots and lots of homes, which resulted in great new suburbs being built, and began raising children, and still more children. And pretty soon these youngsters needed more schools and classrooms than the nation had ever needed before. All of this was to the good, of course. The new families needed cars and bigger homes as families grew, and more appliances and more goods, services of all kinds. Eventually, even though production was climbing, with all those jobs and homes and cars and kids and appliances and suburbs and so on and so forth, there was an upward spiral of wages and prices. And beneath the surface of what looked like prosperity was this new enemy, the enemy of inflation. The people couldn't see him or recognize him for what he was, but they certainly felt the consequences. Although these consequences took many painful forms, they all came down to this: money wouldn't buy as much. The pay was higher than ever before, but it bought less food, clothing, and shelter than ever before. You can be certain this made the housewife and all her family very unhappy. And the only thing a raise in pay could do was to help a family keep up with the higher cost of living. The businessmen and the merchants found that their costs, too, were rising faster than before. And the result was prices began to rise again. And so the cost of living kept on creeping higher and higher, and the value of money kept on slipping lower and lower. And the enemy within kept on getting fatter and fatter. The older citizens and the others on fixed incomes were the hardest hit of all, since their incomes couldn't possibly buy what they'd originally planned. Along with everyone else, these folks were in trouble. Meanwhile, the government was having almost as much trouble as the citizens. You recall that while the war had still been going on, the government had to borrow the money to buy the arms and ammunitions needed to win the war. So the country had a tremendous load of debt to carry and to pay interest on. But what was worse was that the end of the war had not meant the end of the need for arms and ammunitions. Far from it. Even though they continued to live in harmony with their nearest neighbors, the government had to maintain defenses big enough to discourage unfriendly nations from attacking. And these defensive arms also cost a lot of money. Higher taxes could have paid for all of this, but taxes were already at an all-time high. The government didn't want to ask for more taxes, and for that matter, people didn't want to pay them either. And so, the government borrowed still more money to pay for defense. First, the government tried to borrow the money from the people, for this was money already in existence and would not have increased inflation. But when it had borrowed all it could from the people, the government began to borrow money from the banks again. This had an effect similar to printing more money, and the enemy within kept getting fatter and more greedy all the time. Since prices had been rising all along the line, the government had to pay higher prices for goods it bought and for the services it supplied. This spiral of increasing costs helped a vicious circle. Then, too, the owners of all those new cars we mentioned began to crowd the highways and asked the government for more better roads. The parents of the kids wanted more schools for their youngsters, so the pressure was put on the government all along the line, from every segment of the population. More goods, more services, more financial assistance, more government support, more special consideration. And at every new request, the government had to face this difficult decision: to refuse a request or to grant the request, and then to raise taxes once again or to borrow more money. And so the government, being a collection of human beings just like you and you and you and you and me too, usually decided to borrow more money because that seemed to hurt nobody and to make everybody happy. But it didn't make everybody happy, because when the government put that extra, it was only too obvious, only too soon, that there was more money to buy things than there were things to buy with the money in circulation. If the good people of paradise had saved the extra money so their savings could have been invested to increase production, they might very well have broken the vicious spiral of inflation. But being human beings, just like you and you and you and you and me too, they took their extra cash into the stores and marketplaces and competed with their neighbors for the goods and services that were available. And you know what that will do to the price of things. And it did. Prices went up and up and up, and wages followed them up and up and up. And the enemy within became bigger and fatter than ever before. And the whole thing started all over again. But don't underestimate the citizens of paradise. They're no fools. They sat down together and examined the entire situation from every possible angle. They finally recognized their enemy, and they tied him down. They put a stop to inflation the only way it could be stopped: by the people themselves. Here's how they did it. First, they demanded that the government live within its means, just as a family has to live within its means. This, of course, meant refusing to expand such services as could possibly be delayed until after the inflation crisis was past. Unless the people were willing to do this, they would have to pay for any additional services they wanted by agreeing to increase their own taxes. The people didn't like this idea at first because taxes were so high, but they had to admit it made a lot of sense. So they stopped asking for services and benefits they weren't willing to pay for as they went along. People agreed to ask for increased wages only as justified by increased productivity. And manufacturers and businessmen agreed to share the benefits of increased productivity with the consumer by offering greater values. Housewives and heads of families shopped more carefully than they ever had before, and persistently sought out the best possible value they could get in any product or item. With everybody working together to lick this problem, they immobilized the enemy. The value of their money began to level off, instead of dropping constantly, until it finally stabilized itself at a sensible level. The cost of living also leveled off again, and folks had confidence in the future and began saving more of their money instead of speculating on inflation. Not only did it make them feel secure, but these savings provided the capital to increase production. We thought you ought to know of the method used by the people of paradise to solve their problem of inflation, because you might happen to know of some similar situation sometime. If you do happen to come across such a situation, here are the symptoms by which you can recognize it. Prices and wages will be at an all-time high. And although taxes will be at an all-time high, government will be living beyond its income. And there still will be a demand for more government services. Each segment of the population will be blaming every other segment of the population for the situation. And finally, and most important of all, money will be steadily losing its value. If you should run across such a situation, you might tell the good citizens of that country how the problem was solved by the good citizens of the Republic of Paradise, bounded by Graustark in the north, Ruritania in the south, the Sea of Hope on the east, and on the west by the Ocean of Tranquility.
newt and frog, wool of bat and tail of hog. For a vision, powerful double, make a potion, boil and bubble. Yes, those old sorcerers had the right idea, but not the right equipment to really look into the future. But now, by combining their old recipes with my modern electronics, I'll really be able to look into the future. Eh, Chimes?
Oh, yes, sir, but I trust everything is in order this time.
Of course everything is in order. Let's see now. The ignitron uses the eye of a newt for its grid, the thyrotron, a toe of the frog for the cathode, the photomultiplier, the wool of a bat, and the tail of a hog. Well, everything seems to be A-OK. Now for the test. Ready, Chimes?
Ready, sir.
Oh, this invention will rock the world!
Congratulations, sir. I think you just rocked the world.
Confound it, Chimes. That was a mistake. Something went wrong. I wonder what.
Begging your pardon, sir, but perhaps your nephew Dialer at the laboratories could be of some assistance.
By George, I'll call Dialer and find out. Can't let him suspect why I'm calling, though.
Bell Telephone Laboratories, Dialer speaking.
Hello, Dialer, my nephew.
Hi, Unc. What's new with you?
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. What's new at the labs?
Gosh, Unc, everything we're working on is new. Anything in particular I can help you with?
Well, yes. What about looking into the future?
Looking into the future? Why, here at the Bell Labs, it's part of our duty to look as far ahead as possible.
Yes. But what do you use? A crystal ball? Conjure up a vision or what?
Hardly, Unc. You see, Sybil helps us.
Oh, you're using one of those old-fashioned oracles, eh?
Not exactly, Unc. Sybil is a computer-like machine that helps us predict the future of...
Oh, no. No, they can't. They just can't have invented my invention.
And through Sybil, we can try out a proposed communication service before time and money is spent developing it.
If this Sybil really works, maybe Dialer will tell me what he's seen in the future. Dialer, my boy, just what can we look forward to?
Well, Unc, in the years ahead, the telephone of the future will be an even more prominent and versatile part of our lives than it is today. Take a typical day in the life of your great-grandnephew Cordell. It's a spring morning as we look in on his home. Breakfast's over. Cord, who's an executive with an interspace engineering company, kisses his wife, Pat, and their two children, Princess and Junior, goodbye, and leaves for the office. A soundproof room attached to the house. Without the problems of commuting or traffic jams, he's ready to start work in a matter of minutes. First, there's an intercontinental business conference. A touch of a button, and picture phones bring the conferees together. In seconds, company executives located around the world are deep in discussions over business details. Even printed material is exchanged among the group by telephonic machines, as if they were all in the same room. The conference over, Cord picks up a waiting telephone call that rings as soon as his line becomes free. It's one of his engineers at an outer space construction job. The project has been hit by a derelict rocket. Plans for removing the rocket and repairing the damage are worked out between Cord and the space project by a telephone conversation. Now that's carried through space on a thin rod-like beam of invisible infrared light projected from an optical maser. Operating on no more power than an ordinary light bulb, the optical maser will be able to carry hundreds of thousands of telephone calls and television programs all at one time on a single beam of light. Equipment and materials needed to do the job are ordered over an advanced data phone system, which reads the recorded information and transmits it to the data receiving center. Here, a data phone receiving unit duplicates the ordering information, which is fed into data processing machines and electronic computers. The processed information on the ordered items is then data phoned to the correct manufacturing, assembling, and shipping points around the world. On the other side of the house, Junior is getting help with his homework. The program comes from an education center and is carried on a special TV circuit via telephone waveguide, a hollow tube that can carry hundreds of television programs and telephone calls at one time. Later in the afternoon, Pat is browsing around a dress shop on her picture phone. A design in the new spring colors catches her eye. It's just what she could wear to the Bennetts for dinner. Oh, dinner. It's almost that time, and Princess is still playing outside with her friends on their helicycles. But her wristwatch radio telephone makes it easy to call even young teenagers home for dinner. Later in the evening, Cord and Junior watch a real World Series game, being telecast from Tokyo via communication satellites. The North American pennant winners are playing the Far East League champs, the Tokyo Samurais. Pat and Princess, more interested in culture than sports, are tuned to a program from the Museum of Modern Art that's showing typical examples of movies seen on the late, late shows in the mid-1900s. Yes, the average day in the life of an average family in the future will be easier than ours today. But few things will be easier than telephonic communications.
Sounds great, my boy, but isn't it a bit fantastic?
Not at all, Unc. In fact, the data phone system is already in use. And we're experimenting right now with picture phones here in the Bell Laboratories. Then, too, the day of communicating by satellites is here. The waveguide system and the optical maser are being developed here at the labs along with other telephone services for the future.
Talking of the future, there's one thing you've overlooked.
What's that, Unc?
The smellophone.
The what?
Yes, the smellophone. Think of the possibilities. Being able to smell things over the telephone. Why, it's the greatest of my great ideas.
Confidentially, I think the idea indubitably has questionable sociological ramifications.
This is a musical picture about women, because women are important. Women are different, particularly women behind the wheel. But what is a woman? Well, she's I mean, a woman is, well, unlike a man, a woman is, oh, who can figure out women?
Oh, whoever figured out the women since the world began? If you can figure out the women, then you're the wisest man. You're the wisest man. Oh, how many moods has a woman? Can anyone keep score? Just count every star in the sky and then add 100 more. Add 100 more. Oh, I'm not the smartest of men, no siree, but the main thing seems to me she was born to be gentle and born to be kind. She's patient and tender and sweet. Describe her for hours, and when you are done, you'll find you have barely begun. She was born to be pampered and born to be loved. Just look in her eyes and you'll see. So treat her with kindness, and soon you will know how grateful a woman can be. Oh, a boy of 8 can be rowdy, but a girl's a living doll. She's fresh and dainty, and when she grows up, you'll find she hasn't changed at all. She hasn't changed at all.
We can go on and on about women and wind up neither here nor there. Guess we'll never figure them out, because a woman is many things with many moods. But we don't have to figure them out. There's one thing we should remember, though. Always treat her with care, even when we're in a hurry.
The world today is hustle and bustle. We don't know what is what and who is who. But even so, we men should never forget to treat her like she'd like us to, the way she'd like us to. To split the atom, we'll learn to fly through space. But will we ever learn a woman has a mind behind her face? behind her lovely face. They say that it's a man's world when it comes to women we're inclined to patronize. And yet, it seems to us the main thing, if we take the trouble to explain things, we might be surprised. Talk on and on about women and wind up neither here nor there. But you don't have to figure out women as long as you treat her with care. Treat her with care. And she'll always be grateful no matter when or where you meet her. Just treat her with care.
Please, Mr. Everhart, I cannot stand to see a grown man crying. Why should hiring a new secretary be such a trauma for you?
Doctor, you don't understand. Real secretaries are harder than you can imagine. And I had never really stopped to think what qualities she should have before I began hiring a new one. The girl who quit was in that position before I took the job. And I had never really had a secretary of my own before then when I was in the field all the time. So naturally, I thought all secretaries were just like she was, but they aren't, Doctor. They aren't.
Yes, I see. You are suffering from acute nervousness brought on by a not uncommon trauma. We refer to it as executive syndrome.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, how do we attack it? You said that you knew those qualities that a good secretary should have. But what in your mind are those qualities?
Well, let's see. First of all, she should be loyal to me and to the company. And of course, she should be intelligent. And naturally, she should have all the normal secretarial skills. That goes without saying, really. And she should have initiative. This is very important. And ingenuity. The two of them work hand in hand. Oh, and a willingness to work. She should have a good business sense. She should have tact and a certain amount of charm. Taste in her appearance, anyway. And she should have the ability to organize, psychological insight, ability to write, and...
I see. And just where do you expect to find this goddess?
Huh? Oh, I see what you mean. Maybe I'm expecting a little too much, huh?
No, you should look for these qualities when looking for a new secretary, but nobody is perfect, you know.
You see, when I was looking, I tried to consider...
Look, why don't you tell me the whole story? Then we can find out where things went wrong, okay? Let's start at the beginning.
Well, when Miss Merritt left, I decided, just like most men, that I'd hire someone that was a real looker. Make all the other managers jealous, you know. So I did. Oh, the girl I got was beautiful to look at. But that's all. Oh, Miss Taylor, would you come in, please?
Righty, just a sec.
I want to dictate an answer to this letter from Harry Saltzman.
Okay, just a sec.
What?
I gotta go get my book.
Oh, no.
Listen, I'll only be a second. Now, don't you forget what you were gonna say. Yeah, hello? Oh, hi, Candy. Oh, nothing much. I've got a date with Henry tonight. Yeah. Well, I figure it beats staying home with the TV. But just. Huh? Oh, I don't know. He mentioned something about going to a movie. But I'd rather go dancing or something. I've got this terrific new dress cut down to...
Miss Taylor.
What?
My dictation, please.
Huh?
The letter I was about to dictate.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I'll be there in a sec. Listen, I gotta go. He wants to dictate a letter, and you know how long that takes me. Yeah, I'll call you back when he goes out. Okay, shoot.
To Harry Saltzman, ABC Company, get the address from the files. Dear Harry, about that sales call you mentioned last week, I'm sorry we didn't follow up on your good advice, but...
Hey, you trying to catch a train?
What?
Slower, slower. We got all day.
Where was I?
Let me see. Henry Saltzman.
Harry.
Oh, Harry. ABC Company. Get the address from the file. Dear Henry. Harry, right? About that
sales call you mentioned last week. Better.
Last week. Yeah, a little. Hey, listen, you know what? If you wrote down all your letters on paper, then I could copy them over. We could save a lot of time. Because frankly, I'm a little rough on my shorthand.
So I had to let her go. I was doing all the work myself. She was nothing but a typist.
Oh, but you must not blame yourself too much. It is quite natural for someone to make this mistake when hiring a secretary for the first time. We refer to it as the libido satisfaction syndrome.
Oh, really?
Yes, so you must not be too harsh with yourself. It is, in fact, boringly common among the executives I meet. But what did you do next? That is the important thing. How did you respond to crisis?
I decided, hire a girl who was inexperienced and train her to be the kind of secretary I really wanted.
Aha! The get 'em while they're fresh reaction, eh? So then what happened?
Well, I hired this nice young kid with practically no experience. She came in and she was willingness itself. She'd do anything I asked her to do. And nothing more.
I'm awfully sorry. Mr. Everhart has stepped out right now. I'm not exactly sure when he'll be back. Yes, that's a good idea. Why don't you do that? Call back. All righty. Bye now.
Did I have any calls?
Oh, yes, sir, several.
Who were they from?
Gee, Mr. Everhart, I don't know. They didn't say. I think I recognized Mr. Robinson's voice one time, though.
Didn't you take any numbers?
No, sir, I didn't. I just figured they'd call you back.
Well, I wish next time you would take the numbers.
Oh, yes, sir, I certainly will. If they call again, I'll get the number, if I recognize the voice.
Oh, no, I mean... Oh, well... Do you have the meter file?
Yes, sir, I do.
Well? Bring it in.
Oh, okay. Mr. E., do you know what I might have done with that file? I can't seem to locate it.
What? Don't tell me you've lost it. That file is very important.
Well, I know it's not in the filing cabinet, and it's not on my desk, and I know where it is. I left it in by the copying machine. I'll just run and get it.
Well, hurry. Meter will be here at 2:30.
Yes, I know, and Mr. Franklin is coming at 2:15.
He is?
Yes, sir.
I don't remember making an appointment to see Franklin at 2:15.
Oh, you didn't. I did.
What? You can't do that. I don't want to see Franklin until after this appointment with Meter. Now, why did you schedule him for then?
Oh, well, he called up and asked if he could have an appointment this afternoon, and I said what time, and he said 2:15, and I thought you liked Mr. Franklin, so I said okay.
Now, didn't you check my calendar to see that I had an appointment for 2:30?
No, sir, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Oh, all right, never mind. Get Franklin on the phone and tell him I'll have to see him later. Tell him to make it 3:30.
Yes, sir. Do you know his number?
No, I do not.
Oh. Well, then I'll look it up.
Do that.
Mr. Everhart's office. Oh, hi there, Mr. Freeman. Sure, he's in. Let me see if he'll talk to you. Mr. Everhart, this is Mr. Freeman. Do you want to talk to him?
Well, I think we can make delivery on time. It all depends.
Oh,
whether or
Mr.
not
Everhart, I was just typing up this letter you dictated this morning, and there's something here I can't seem to figure out. Did you say you would or would not accept shipment after the 15th?
I would not.
Oh, that's what I thought you said. But I must have just left it out. Anyway, I did want to check because I know what difficulty it would cause if I let it go out wrong that way. How neat does this have to be?
Very neat. Oh, by the way, has anybody heard from Stewart? I've been waiting for that phone call all day.
Oh, yes, he called while you were in Mr. Jackson's office. He lost the sale.
Well, why didn't you tell me that before now?
You didn't ask me.
Frustrating. Hmm?
Frustrating. Oh, I was constantly being embarrassed by that girl because she didn't have enough business sense and ingenuity to figure out even the simplest thing for herself. One day, she had 3 people waiting in my outer office, all scheduled for the same time. She said she thought I was having a meeting. They were competitors.
So, you fired her, huh?
Oh, no, I didn't get the chance. She quit and married the typewriter repairman.
Ah, jilted boss response. So then, what did you do?
Well, I learned my lesson. I decided if I was going to get any work done, still have anything left in my career, I'd have to get a very experienced woman who had worked for a number of years, who knew what doing a job well really meant. An older woman you could count on that wouldn't be flighty and have her mind on anything but the work.
Aha. Oedipus complex.
So I did. I hired a woman who had been a secretary for years. In fact, she had worked for so long, there wasn't anything she couldn't do, including run my business.
Mr. Everhart is out of the office, but is due back in 7 minutes. We will return your call at that time. Goodbye. You're early.
Any calls?
Yes, I'll give them to you in a moment. There are a few other things I need to discuss with you first. I'll be right with you. Just have a seat at your desk.
Any word from Howard on that contract?
I'll get to that.
Excuse me.
First, you made a mistake in one of the letters you dictated this morning. You said that you would accept shipment after the 15th, when you meant to say that you would not. I corrected it for you and sent it out.
But I didn't sign it.
I did it for you.
I didn't get a chance to read it first, or to check it for typos.
I don't make typos.
Oh, that's right.
Mr. Johnson called and wanted an appointment for 2:30, but I told him he would be tied up until 3:30, so he will call back to arrange a later time.
But I don't have anything on for 2:30.
You forget, Mr. Everhart, that I take dictation from 2:30 to 3:30.
Oh, that's right. I forget.
Yes, I can see I'll have to start putting it on your calendar until you can remember. Now, a call came in for a price quotation on the new gauges.
Oh, really? Well, good. Where's the request form?
I took care of it and sent it out in the mail. It was for the same specifications as the Acme heating job that we handled last week.
Now, Miss Grimm, I want to see all those requests. It may just be
Now,
that...
look here, Mr. Everhart. I'm just trying to run this office the way it should be run. If there is to be any efficiency at all around here, you must let me organize the work the way I think best. Now, if you don't trust my work...
Oh, no,
Very well, then. If anything comes up that I think you should be consulted about, I'll certainly ask you. I can't do everything. Now, I have scheduled a golf game with you and Mr. Jameson for tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Now, look, I don't like to play golf with Jameson. He always...
I know that, sir. But the entire reliable company account rests on the Jameson sale, and I felt that you should go and try to close the deal on the course. Now, if you don't care about the sale, I suppose I could always...
No, I'll keep the date. Where's the mail?
I've taken care of it. There was nothing that you need to bother with. I answered the letters that required it and dispatched the rest of the correspondence to the right people to handle. Excuse me, sir. Mr. Everhart's office, Miss Grimm speaking. May I help you? Well, put Mr. Brown on, and I'll put Mr. Everhart on. Put Mr. Brown on first. Now, look here. What does this call concern? I'm sorry, but I have told you before that Mr. Everhart does not have time to talk to you on those matters. If you will refer to my letter of last week, you will see that the specifications are exactly as indicated in the handbook. There is no further need for any clarification beyond that. No, Mr. Everhart is in conference now and cannot be disturbed. Yes, I'll give him the message, but all the answers you require are in my letter. Goodbye.
Now, Miss Grimm.
Yes?
Now, who was that?
That officious little snip of a secretary to Mr. Brown at Acme. I don't think she'll be bothering us again. Now, will that be all, sir? I have work to do.
Yes, I guess so.
Oh, there is one more thing that requires your signature. It's from personnel. It's my rating sheet. I took the liberty of filling it out. Now, if you'll just sign here.
So with that, I let her go, right on the spot. Let us recapitulate, shall we? This first secretary who quit, causing the ensuing difficulties, was your idea of the ideal secretary. Is that right?
That's right, Doctor. She was attractive and charming. She was efficient. She was intelligent. She had initiative and ingenuity. She was loyal and trustworthy and had everything organized just right. Doctor, she had everything.
I see. You know, Mr. Everhart, I think there is only one solution for your problem. See if you can get her back.
Impossible, Doctor.
Now, why do you say that? I'm sure that if you explain to her how much you needed her, she might be willing to come back. Ah, yes, Mr. Driscoll. Send her right in. Your wife is here.
No, Doctor. Her husband absolutely refuses to let her go back to work.
Now, are you positive? Have you spoken to him?
Oh, yes. You see, I'm the one who married her.
Will that be all? Now, let's see. A pound of tea, 3 spoons of cotton, box of pepper, 4 yards of muslin, 2 bars of soap. That's $1.33.
Life's getting dearer every day.
That's $47.50. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening to you, Mr. Dudley. I hope Mrs. Dudley's feeling better.
Oh, it's just a cold, and Doc Madden is going to come by anyway.
Goodbye, Mr. Perkins.
Good night, Mrs. Johnson.
Now, like I was saying, George, you can't tell me that this here McKinley ain't a good president.
I didn't say he wasn't. I just said I disapproved of some of his policies.
Hello, Daniel.
Oh, Sam, here's my butter for this week.
All right, Daniel, I'll credit to your account. You'll be wanting some for the missus, I suppose?
She'll have some coffee.
Good.
Got your milk over the depot kind of early, didn't you?
Yes, figured I'd beat this storm. Seems to rain just as much in this new century as it did in the old one.
20th century, 19th century. Seems one's about the same as the other.
I got an idea this 20th century is going to knock the whole blame world upside down.
Oh, shoot. You've just been reading those outlandish books by Jules Verne again.
No more outlandish than what's going on right before your eyes here in Elmsville. 4 telephones, a telegraph machine down in the depot, 3 trains coming through every day. People trying to invent flying machines.
Evening, Doc.
Evening, Sam, and how's Emma?
Oh, not too bad. She's waiting to see you.
Right.
Hi, Doc.
George, how's the missus?
She's fine.
All right.
Now look at here, Dan. Supposing these newfangled inventions do come along, how's it going to change things?
You keep bees up in back of your house, don't you?
Uh-huh.
Well, you know how them bees live then. Some do one thing, some another. Something like you and me. You're a cobbler, I'm a farmer. Or take my own house. My boy has his farm chores. Ella does the child raising and cooking. My eldest girl does the sewing.
I don't see what you're driving at.
Well, with these inventions, everybody's going to be split up even a little more on jobs. Why, already they got a factory in the city where they make shoes faster than you can.
But they ain't as good as mine.
Maybe not, but one man alone don't make them. One fella cuts out the soles, another fella makes the tops. And still another one sews the whole shooting match together.
Oh, I get it. You mean the whole country's going to be just like a beehive?
Just about.
What do you think of that, Sam? This loony farmer said the whole country is going to be like a beehive.
That ain't news. You got some drones down there in Congress already.
I'm serious. I tell you, this new century's going to be a whole new life.
A whole new life it was. A social revolution. Invention and technological advance produced such specialization in skills that the pattern of American society itself underwent a radical change. In transportation, the network of railroads that spread across the nation had the effect of widening markets from a local to a national scale. The arrival of the automobile facilitated the transportation of people as well as products. And the airplane accelerated the speed of transportation even further. The technological advances in communication had such a variety of effects that it is possible to mention only a few. Business expansion was accelerated tremendously. Markets, which had been purely local, became national and even international. Mass advertising became an industry in itself. Radio, and finally television, became a part of daily living. But perhaps the greatest change in the division of labor came not as a result of wider communication and faster transportation, but because of the new machines of mass production that divided and subdivided the jobs of men. The assembly line increased production, at the same time specializing the skills of labor even further. Faster transportation, new means of communication, machines of mass production. What was the effect of these things on the life and business of a man like Sam Dudley, a merchant who owned his store and stocked only those items that the farmers in his locality could not grow or make for themselves? Today, near this same rural community, a supermarket supplies farm families with most of their needs. Here, a farmer's wife can buy vegetables, meat, and other farm products. Her husband finds it more profitable to produce and sell just one commodity. This supermarket is one of a chain owned by many stockholders across the country. The changes affected not only the merchant, but the craftsman as well. A shoemaker like George Perkins no longer makes shoes. Now he mostly repairs them. Today, shoes are made almost entirely in factories. This is part of a great new labor group, the blue-collar workers. Here, no worker completes the product all by himself, and no worker owns the tools he works with. This greater splitting up of labor has given each worker a repetitive, specialized, and relatively less skilled job to do. In the factory office, members of another new labor force, the white-collar workers, specialize in administrative and clerical functions. In the clerical positions, women have come to predominate. Factory workers today seek security and recognition through labor unions as a substitute for the economic independence and the prestige of a craftsman. Even the professions have felt the effects of the change in the division of labor. In 1900, a doctor was not usually a specialist. He took care of all varieties of illness, from typhoid fever to broken bones. And he served as a psychiatrist as well as physician. Sometimes he even prescribed for sick livestock. Today, a growing percentage of doctors are specialists in treating illnesses in separate parts of the body or in curing special diseases. This doctor is a cancer specialist and highly skilled in the use of Betatron equipment. More and more doctors are becoming researchers in narrowly defined fields of medicine. Such work is sponsored by hospitals, foundations, and increasingly by large commercial drug companies. In 1900, a farmer like Daniel Parker produced dairy products, raised 3 or 4 crops, together with several kinds of livestock. Today, the modern farmer is a specialist. Here, too, time has brought many changes. This farmer's product is milk, and only milk. Although he is still the independent owner of his farm, he is only the first link in a long assembly line of new specialists that stretches from him to consumer. The milk goes from farm to receiving station, and from there to the processing plant for pasteurization and bottling. Countless technicians and workers are involved before the milk finally reaches the consumer. Each batch must be tested for quality, freshness, butter fat, vitamin content, and even flavor. Laws enforced by governmental inspectors require not only minimum nutritional standards, but laboratory examination by skilled technicians for bacterial count and purity. A doctor is employed to check the health of employees. The workers who operate the machines form only a small part of the labor force. There must also be machinists to repair and maintain the machinery. There must be shippers to prepare the milk for delivery. There is a huge administrative and clerical force. There are salesmen and advertising men to sell the milk, and dispatchers and truckers to see that it's delivered on time. The division of labor has not just been increasingly divided, it has been atomized so radically that even a man of imagination back in 1900 can only dimly conceive it.
Well, I guess it's time for me to be heading home.
Oh, it's early, Ed. Stay a while.
Sure, for you stab beds that don't get up till 7, farmer gets up at 4.
Huh, what's the matter, Dan? You jealous?
No, just sleepy. So I'll say good night.
Good night, Dan.
Night, Dan. Well, he's got a lot of crazy ideas, but we've always had men with crazy ideas around.
Hey, Dan.
What?
Don't be having any nightmares about beehives and flying machines.
Yeah, and pictures coming to life on the wall and crazy boats rolling around under the sea.
I'll button your lip.
What a man.
That Dan is a darn good farmer, but he's sure nuttier than a fruitcake.
This is our neighborhood. In spite of the way it looks, it isn't like any other place anywhere. You notice the difference the minute you see the people. Yes, the people around here are friendly. Our merchants are strong on courtesy and that extra bit of service. And they keep their promises too. Like when Jake Thomas tells you a suit will be ready at 5 o'clock. It will be ready at 5 o'clock. Anywhere you look, you'll find that extra bit of thoughtfulness that means so much. Out where we live, people seem to be friendlier, more courteous, more helpful. Of course, it wasn't always this way, but it all started right here on this corner. Not so long ago, Officer O'Mara was a short-tempered man. He'd give you the whistle or the rough side of his tongue as quick as look at you. Then one morning, young Henry Carter, who operates the gas station at the corner of Main and 3rd, came up to O'Mara's intersection, and his mind wasn't entirely on his driving. When O'Mara stalked over to him, Henry realized that he had stopped in the crosswalk. So he just sat there, waiting for O'Mara to explode. But this morning, O'Mara didn't explode. He got a very odd look on his face. And then he waved Henry ahead. Well, right then and there was the first link in the chain miracle started by O'Mara. The miracle that made our town different. Young Henry kept mulling the incident over in his mind. And it had quite an effect on him. He decided that if a gruff guy like O'Mara could be human, he, Henry Carter, could give it a little extra try with his customers. He started by making Fred Murray, our haberdasher, think it was a favor to let Henry put air in his tires.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you? Fill her up. Your left front tire looks kind of soft. Glad to check them all for you while I'm at it. Yeah. Nice day, huh?
Hadn't thought of it. But it is, isn't it?
Notice your windshield wiper's kind of loose. There, she's okay now.
Beginning that day, Henry was a new man. He was pleasant. He tried to figure out what people needed before they had to ask for it. And he made them feel welcome in his place of business.
Glad to take care of you anytime, sir. Come on in again.
Yeah. Maybe I will. Thanks a lot.
The way Henry Carter treated Fred at the gas station kind of woke Fred up. Made him feel so good that maybe he ought to pass the same treatment on to his customers. The first one he tried it on was Tom Smith, who is a salesman at our neighborhood Chevrolet company. Fred took an interest in what Tom wanted, made him feel that he was glad to see him and glad to help him.
That suit looks mighty good on you. Is that what you had in mind?
I guess that's about it.
Good, but before you make up your mind finally, I'd like you to take a look at these. We might find something you like better. And if we don't, you'll be all the happier with this suit you have on.
Sure, why not?
Would you excuse me just a moment, Mr. Smith?
Certainly.
How do you do? I see you're interested in ties.
Yes.
Here's a tray of new ones. Would you like to look these over while I finish with my other customer? It'll be just a few moments.
Of course.
Fred found that it was easy to be friendly and to treat people fairly. And he found that knowing what he had to sell was important too. And Tom Smith got a whole new slant on the business of helping the customer find what he really wants. So you can see how the miracle that started on O'Mara's corner began to spread throughout the whole community. But O'Mara, the man who started it, couldn't understand why people were suddenly becoming so friendly. People like Tom Smith. And Tom Smith was caught up in the miracle of treating people right. And he passed it on to Joe Corey, our local butcher.
Yeah, I guess that's right, Mr. Smith. Now that you explain everything, I understand all right. I know you're going to take care of me okay. Guess I asked a lot of questions.
Not at all, Mr. Corey. We feel that every customer has a right to know what he's getting for his money and what the things he buys are going to cost him. Now, we want you to know we are going to do everything we can to try to get your new car to you as soon as possible. Naturally, it may take a few days because we want to be fair to our other customers. And I'm sure that's the way you'd want us to do business with you.
Yes, the simple little miracle of doing as you would be done by was spreading fast. For example, Pete Robbins, the Chevrolet service manager, passed it along where it would do most good, right in his own department.
Fellas, before we go to work, I'd like to tell you something I got to thinking about last night. You see, I take my clothes to Jake Thomas for dry cleaning. And the reason is that I know he does a good job and he keeps his promises. And, well, he makes me feel like he appreciates my business. And if that'll work for him to keep me as his customer, why won't it do the same thing for us right here in our own shop? Here's how I look at it. The way to do good business is to have good customers and to keep them happy. Now, we have good customers. And the way to keep them happy is to remember three things. Do the job right the first time. Do the job on time. And be friendly while you're doing it.
O'Mara. O'Mara still didn't get it. But Joe Corey, the butcher, did. Incidentally, Joe had quite a lot of reforming to do, but he found it wasn't such a hard job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Well, how do you do, Mrs. Jones? What can I do for you today?
Well, Joe, you can tell me that I'm your very favorite customer and that you've got some nice lean pork chops hidden behind the counter, especially for me.
Well, Mrs. Jones, everybody's my favorite customer, but I'm going to treat everyone fair, and for everybody, I've got no pork chops hiding. But I've got some nice chickens here I want you to see. A nice one here for $1.89. An extra special good one for $2 1/4. Now, you tell me which one you like, and I'll cut it up real nice for you.
It made Joe feel pretty good to be treating everyone as his favorite customer. And it made Mary Jones feel pretty good to get that kind of treatment. Mary Jones is a telephone operator down at the light company. Suddenly, a lot of people found they were more cheerful after they had been talking to Mary. Of course, by now, Mary Jones was just one link in the one chain of the many chains that were passing the miracle along. And so the miracle grew, passing from friend to friend, from family to family, from store to store, and from one business to another. And pretty soon, everyone found himself doing things a little differently, giving a little more thought to the other fellow, and discovering that life was a lot more fun. Ever since, this has been a wonderful place to live and work in, with people liking each other and trusting each other. Business has picked up in all the stores, with people spending more money and getting more out of it. And it's so easy to keep on doing it. We don't think we're ever going to stop. Some of our businessmen got up a poster, so strangers will know how we want to treat them. Here, you can read it yourself. And the miracle finally got around to changing O'Mara, just like it changed everyone else. And now he can count his friends. Of course, there had to be a catch somewhere. The fact about that morning when it all started have never before been revealed to a human soul. And there's the only man who knows the reason Officer O'Mara didn't explode that morning was because the poor devil woke up with laryngitis and couldn't raise his voice above a whisper. And who am I to be telling you all this? Who should know better than himself? O'Mara. But there's one thing. Starting a miracle is easy. It isn't everybody wearing a halo. It's just letting the people you do business with know that you like them, that you want to help them. It's just keeping your word and being fair with everyone. It's just doing things the pleasant way. And I found it the easiest way. Now, if our miracle got started, we'll say now, by accident. Just think how easy it would be to start one on purpose. Now, you take a tip from O'Mara and try it where you live and where you work.
Charlie! Charlie!
A family is born with children. And it grows strong with a sense of belonging. Each member of the family has his own desires and a need to share them. A need to share his desires and to have them understood. Sometimes the way to understanding is blocked, but the desire remains. For it is not easy for a desire to be understood when there is so much that needs doing. And in the home, there is much to be done. No end to the things that need doing. A family means work. And each member helps in that work. It helps to get work done when people remember they're part of a family. But sometimes there's more work than hands can do.
Look at this, Mother.
Things will get better.
When? Next week? Next month? Next year? Children are growing up and things are wearing out. It's got to end, Mother.
You and Fred are doing all you can.
It's not enough. Mary won't bring her friends home. And I can't say I blame her.
Well, it's not your problem alone, Louise. You have a family. Talk it over with them. This is their home, too.
A man goes to work, and his family can eat. A man goes to work, and his family is clothed. A man goes to work, and his family is educated. A man goes to work. Sometimes he wonders. But a man goes to work because a man realizes himself and his family. How does a boy realize himself? A simple job and his needs are filled. A kite, a jackknife, or even a flute. A woman looks for realization in a different way, in a way that will serve her family. A means that will benefit all. And a young girl realizes herself in her preparation for life. Work, school, friends. Growing up is not an easy time for anybody, and adolescence is a very special time, hoping time, a confusing time. There is the need to be accepted, no matter what the cost. And the family realizes itself in each other. In being with each other. In doing things for each other.
and by feeling free to reveal to each other their thoughts, their desires, their needs.
Fred, take a look at this. We could use that machine. It's not really expensive.
Yes.
We can pay by the month.
But when needs conflict, which shall come first?
Well, I could make new curtains. So many things for all of us. It'll save us money.
We just can't do it, Louise. I wish we could. I wish we could.
Fred, Louise is right. You can't afford to buy new things for the children.
No matter what need, each has the right to discuss it.
It's not a luxury, Fred. It's a necessity.
And to share in its fulfillment.
And I can help out, too.
Granny, Mom.
Well, where'd you get that?
I bought it. It's my own money.
Your money? That was your money for college. Don't you talk things over with us anymore.
But it's my own money.
When you live alone, then you can act alone. Charlie wants a flute. Your mother wants a sewing machine. Your grandmother, she needs things. What would happen if all of us just went out and spent money? Where'd we be? Where'd you be? We wouldn't have a roof over our heads. Don't you understand that? Are you out of your mind?
But to act alone endangers the family and oneself. How does it begin? Where does the first break in a family come? How does a family learn to reach across, to touch the understanding in each other? No matter what the answer, the welfare of a family is priceless. When a crisis comes, the members of a family must join to meet it. When a crisis comes, the members of a family must realize how much they depend on each other. When a crisis comes, a family goes out to meet it. When a family is concerned for its welfare, a family discovers itself. And each member finds for himself a new measure of understanding in the family. with this understanding, can face the family's problems.
I'm sorry, Mary. I shouldn't have lost my temper. You know how it is. Sometimes we say things we don't mean.
It's all my fault, Dad. About the dress, I guess I should have spoken to you and Mom first.
I guess maybe we were all a little hasty.
It's my fault.
It's nobody's fault. Things happen when they get out of hand. Sit down, friend. You've forgotten, but I haven't. When you were a little boy, you sometimes did things that I didn't approve. But that's part of growing up. Seems to be more problems today than in my time, but the handling of them is always the same. People have to sit down and talk things over. Families have to get together, learn to get along. It's us, the family.
The family that faces its problems together has a sense of security, a feeling of belonging, and a strength for the future.